Does the iPhone XR give up anything compared to the XS? What about its camera? What about its size? What about battery life? Is this the best iPhone to get right now? Let's find out. There are lots of iPhones, and they've been getting more expensive. Once Apple released the iPhone X, suddenly a $1,000 phone became a thing. Other companies have followed suit. There's some relief with the iPhone XR. iPhones cost as much as laptops now, and that means you're probably not going to be buying one as frequently. Or if you do, you're going to be thinking really hard about which one to get. That's why the iPhone XR is really nice, because it costs $750 to start. That's a lot less than the $1,000 of the iPhone X and iPhone XS. The XR has an LCD display instead of OLED, nearly full screen, except for the TrueDepth Face ID sensing camera on the front, same as the other 10 models. Yes, there's a notch. There's a bit more bezel on this phone, but its 6.1-inch LCD still looks great. It's also a bigger screen for movies and games compared to the iPhone XS. There are differences between the XS OLED and the XR LCD. Black levels aren't as black, but colors still look great, and in most everyday use cases, you'll probably never know the difference unless you're directly comparing them side by side. The phone's a bit thicker, and it's got aluminum sides instead of steel, along with the glass front and back. But so were the other iPhones before this. Big deal. The battery life is better, and that's great. A few hours more, says Apple, over the XS. In my use so far, it seems like it holds a charge longer during the day. The phone's got the same processor as the iPhone XS, with a gig less RAM, but performance is just as fast. Remember 3D Touch? Or maybe you don't. Did you ever use it? Apple's pressure-sensitive screen display tech is now gone. On the XR, it's not there, it's okay, you won't miss it. I do like 3D Touch for previewing links and peeking at info in some apps, but it's really fine not to have it. Excellent haptic vibrations still make it feel like I'm pressing in a bit sometimes, even when I'm not, and haptics matter more than pressure. So what about the cameras? You're so good. For the most part, the XR is great and takes photos just like the iPhone XS. The front-facing camera is the same and does the same portrait mode effects, Face ID, and Animoji that the iPhone X models can. Apple's onboard camera sensor and ISP are the same as the iPhone XS, so general photos and smart HDR work the same, helping grab extra detail, get faster focus, and avoiding bright light blowout in high contrast areas. But there's no second rear camera. That's where the XR is really different. The rear camera just has one lens, like the Google Pixel 3. The iPhone XR does have portrait mode on its rear camera, but it's a very different thing than portrait mode on an iPhone X or a XS. First of all, it's all handled via software, but also, even when you're putting the portrait mode effect in, it's all based in wide angle, whereas the iPhone X and XS lean towards telephoto. That means that at the same distance that on those phones, you'd be seeing the subject a lot closer. Here, you're seeing me pretty far away. But it also means you can bring the phone closer to me. So if I go like this, you can actually get close up. But then, of course, it's all wide angle distorted. But sometimes you might like that effect. I do notice that when you take photos in this phone, the portrait mode here seems to capture a little more detail in low light. So on the iPhone XS Max, you can see the portrait mode actually gets a lot closer to my face at a similar distance. And the look of it is different. My face is shaped differently, and there's not as much room on the sides here. Portrait photos on the iPhone XR that I took ended up seeming farther away. They still look sharp, but not vastly different than what normal wide-angle photos already look like. The bokeh effect is more subtle, too. Faces can end up looking more detailed and less flat than portrait photos on the XS, but also can be more distorted. On the iPhone XS, portrait mode at the same distance zooms in a lot closer. But faces also seem better proportioned and more beautifully composed. Still, for a classic headshot, the XS handles things better. Keep in mind, portrait mode on the XR is just designed to work with people, not animals or objects, unlike the XS, which can work with anything, or the Google Pixel 3. The AI algorithm is stubborn. It doesn't work on anything except for people or things that look very nearly like people. I tried it on real people, then pictures of people, which sometimes worked, then people models, and people-like things, and just objects. Pet photos do not register with portrait mode. The Pixel 3 XL takes better dog shots. So the Pixel 3 wins the pet photo game. Hopefully Apple will update portrait mode software in the XR to allow pets in the future, because, come on, pets. The iPhone XR has digital zoom. You have to pinch with 2 fingers to make it happen. If you're trying to take a photo with one hand, that can get pretty annoying. The Pixel 3 has a tap to zoom button. It would be really nice to see that on the iPhone XR, maybe in a software update. Another nice little thing about the XR, colors. My review unit was white, which was kind of a bummer, but you can get this in red, you can get it in coral, blue, yellow, and even though you may be wearing a case, you might want to show it off. Other than not having that second rear camera, everything else on this iPhone is great. You're probably not going to miss any of the stuff that the iPhone XS brings to the table. And at $750, or better yet, go to $799 and get the 128GB version. This is my favorite iPhone probably in years. It's the best all-around iPhone, and it's finally one that's not $1,000. So if you've been shopping for one, waiting for one, I think this is the one to get. It's not technically the top-end iPhone, but I don't even really think that matters anymore.